Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl as it's been requested, and it is something very popular right now. So the first thing we've got to mention here is we've got the chart of Tampa, okay, because the game is taking place in Tampa, and the ascendant is the expected to win team, which in this case is actually Kansas, okay, because Kansas has the better record. They have much more people betting on them, so I'm putting the ascendant as Kansas. That said, this game is taking place in Tampa, so just keep that in mind. The birth chart is from Tampa. The ascendant is Kansas. What we have going on here is a huge stellium of planets in the seventh house, and when you look at like level 1 or 2 astrology here, it's very obvious that you could bet on the descendant here, because level 1 or 2 astrology, the ascendant is who you're inquiring about. The seventh house or the descendant is the opponent or partner. So in this case, the seventh house is way stronger, right? We have way more planets here. But again, that's level 1, level 2 astrology. So let's dig a little bit deeper into this. If you look here at Pluto, for example, Pluto is getting pretty close to the 6th house cusp. Now, when Pluto hits a cusp, this is a big deal. When it's on the 1st house cusp, typically that team loses bad. So whatever team you're inquiring about, or the favorite that you're inquiring about typically loses. When you go to the descendant, the underdog will lose if you put Pluto on the descendant cusp. What happens when it goes on the 6th cusp? Well, it's debated a little bit, but typically it actually empowers the favorite because the 6th house is the house of competition, it's the house of problems. So if you amplify that, you have the power to overcome those things. That's pretty much what I've seen happen. Okay, so that's one thing making this a little bit questionable as to just betting on the descendant. The other thing we've got going on, the sun is getting pretty close to the 8th house cusp. When that happens, it's not like it's doing anything good for the favorite, but it's not making this as strong as it looks for the descendant either. Okay, so considering this conjunction, then we've really got Saturn and Jupiter working in favor of Tampa. Now Venus and Mercury a little bit as well. Mercury's again getting a little close to the 8th cusp, but even if Mercury and Venus were empowering Tampa, it doesn't do it by a lot because really sports in general and especially football, you got to look to the tougher planets, right? And so you got to look to Saturn and the Sun here. Jupiter is just lucky regardless of what game you're playing. So we look at all those things now. We've got basically Saturn and Jupiter strongly benefiting Tampa. Well, what's going on here? In the 10th house, we've got Mars in Aries, and that would be benefiting Kansas. So now it's not so clear. Okay? And to make it even worse, you put the North Node in the 11th house here in Taurus, Rohini. Now you've got something that looks pretty even, with, I would say, maybe Pluto tipping it over towards the favorite Kansas a little more. Again, with all the planets in the 7th house, sometimes it's better to simplify things and go back to level 1 or 2 astrology. Okay? With all the planets in that 7th house, regardless of these techniques that are working very well, we should be able to say that the descendant wins. But I'm not so convinced. I think there's about a 1 to 3 point difference here. And another thing to factor in is the moon in the 6th house here. That's not really empowering Kansas. So with that in mind, actually, I think it tips just slightly in favor of Tampa. Okay. Some other people also mentioned that part of fortune, which I don't have in this chart, but part of fortune is opposite the moon as well, which is not good for Kansas. But just looking at the fact that the moon would be in the 6th alone is enough for me to like deduct a point from them. And that would be enough to say, okay, that's pretty much enough. If we want to look at KP a little bit, yeah, we've got some differences here, but it gets pretty even. So it might favor one side a little more than the other. That's not really what I would look to here so much because it's fairly even. So again, we've got basically a Tampa win here by a spread of 1 to 3 points. However, where this gets even more complex, if this game is about 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes difference, like if it's delayed by at least 2.5 or 3 minutes, now you've got all these planets sitting in the 6th house. So what happens when all those planets are in the 6th house? Well, then it starts to look more like a Kansas win. So this is why I would not bet on this game. Okay, this is not something that I would suggest you bet on. I would say that this is just for analysis. If this game starts right on time, I might be more inclined to bet than if it starts 2 or 3 minutes late. If it starts 5 or 6 minutes late, that could be a very clear indicator of Kansas winning. So I hope this is a good analysis. I hope this has helped you out. Again, assuming this game starts on time, I think we've got a Tampa win.